One down, three to go in the Korn Ferry Tour Finals as the road to French Lick gets closer to Indiana. Hello, welcome once again to the Road to French Lick, a show chronicling the 2024 season on the Korn Ferry Tour, which culminates in the Korn Ferry Tour Championship, presented by United Leasing and Finance, held for the next 5 years on the Pete Dye course at French Lick Resort in French Lick, Indiana. I'm Ryan Ballingy. Thanks for joining us for our latest episode, which covers the first event of the 4-event Korn Ferry Tour Final Series, with the Albertsons Boise Open being the opening leg, reserved for the top 156 players in the Korn Ferry Tour points list at the end of the regular season at the Magnet Championship. While we didn't have 156 players in that field, it was still a spirited tournament and a very important one for a number of players to be able to move on to the next stage of the Korn Ferry Tour Finals, the Simmons Bank Open, which is in the Nashville, Tennessee area and reserved for the top 144 players in the point standings. We're going to go over the Albertsons Boise Open in this episode, hear from our winner, and we'll also spend some time talking with James Nitties, former Korn Ferry Tour winner himself, also a PGA Tour member, and he's a commentator for Golf Channel covering the Korn Ferry Tour Finals on television. We'll talk to him about the journey that he had, as well as the pressure the players are under in the remaining 3 events of the season, up and down the Korn Ferry Tour points list. But first, let's talk about the Albertsons Boise Open and the remarkable story of Matt McCarty, who won his 3rd event of the season with a 2-shot win in Boise, Idaho, winning on 21 under 263, good enough to beat Kevin Roy and William Mao by 2 shots and earn that 3rd win on the season. That is remarkable because that earns him what is known as the 3-win promotion on the Korn Ferry Tour. On any of the tours that the PGA Tour owns and operates that is not the PGA Tour, when you earn 3 wins in a single season, you are automatically promoted to the next stage of tour for the following season with an exemption in full. Or, in the case of the Korn Ferry Tour, you can be moved up to the PGA Tour in that current season, also guaranteeing you an exemption for the following season. So, for Matt McCarty, this means he is eligible to move to the PGA Tour, starting with the FedEx Cup Fall, playing throughout that fall series of events, and potentially earning his way not only into the first couple of mainland United States signature events for 2025, but also potentially finding his way into the Masters tournament for 2025. Let's hear from our winner at the Albertsons Boise Open, Matt McCarty.
I mean, it feels good. A little surreal for sure, but yeah, no, it feels really good, and just like kind of a weird weekend, but just really grinded it out and was happy to kind of hang on in the end, I guess.
When did like the thought of the 3rd win and everything that entailed like pop into your mind?
I mean, kind of like all week, to be honest. It's always kind of there. Like, good start, birdie the first 4. Like, thought I was gonna play really solid all day, honestly, and then didn't. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's weird. Like, I think after Springfield, like in Omaha, like it wasn't easy to win. Like, it doesn't get any easier, I don't think. Like, this was probably the hardest day I've had, out of all 3 of them on Sunday. So like I mean, it's a grind out here, always is. So I don't think that's ever gonna go away, really.
Although Matt McCarty has won the 3-win promotion to the PGA Tour from the Korn Ferry Tour for the remainder of the PGA Tour season, which is their FedEx Cup Fall, McCarty has said he intends to play the remaining Korn Ferry Tour Finals events for a very important reason. The number 1 player in the Korn Ferry Tour points list at the end of the season earns automatic starts into the U.S. Open at Oakmont Country Club next year, as well as the Players' Championship. And although McCarty will have full status on the PGA Tour next year through the 3-win promotion, the benefits of earning that number 1 slot in the Korn Ferry Tour points list are too immense to ignore. So we will expect to see him in the remaining final 3 events of the Korn Ferry Tour season before he decides to play the remainder of the FedEx Cup Fall on the PGA Tour. And if he's fortunate enough to play well throughout the remaining events this year, he could find himself in the top 50 in the official World Golf Ranking, which would earn himself a spot at year's end in the Masters in 2025. With the Albertsons Boise Open in the books, let's reset the Korn Ferry Tour Finals and what this series means. Not only do the top 30 players at the end of the Korn Ferry Tour Championship earn PGA Tour cards for 2025, but the top ranked player earns fully exempt status in their own category, avoids the reshuffle on the PGA Tour for 2025, and gets starts in the US Open and the Players Championship that are guaranteed for next year. Beyond that, however, it is very important to reach the Korn Ferry Tour Championship as the top 75 players in the standings earn full status without the reshuffle on the Korn Ferry Tour in 2025. Otherwise, you're subject to going through Korn Ferry Tour Q School and limiting the ability to earn guaranteed starts next season on the Korn Ferry Tour unless you finish high enough in Q School to potentially earn a PGA Tour card for 2025. So there is a lot on the line in the remaining events, with the top 156 players in the standings qualifying for the Albertsons Boise Open, the top 144 qualifying for the Simmons Bank Open, and then the top 120 players in the standings qualifying for the Nationwide Children's Hospital Championship in Columbus, Ohio. James Nitties joins us, and he is going to be front center for all this action that we have over the next 3 remaining Korn Ferry Tour Finals events. James, thanks for being here. First, can you put into perspective for people what it's like to have to think about the future with points and cutoffs and all the stuff that comes with being the Korn Ferry Tour Finals, but being present enough to play a golf tournament they're going to play in Nashville with a cut?
Yeah, hard to put that into a couple words or even a 5-minute conversation. But for these guys, the pressure is immense, and we all talk about the top 30 number getting to the PGA Tour at the end of the season, but there's a lot on the line for guys that are in that maybe 120 all the way down to 70 number, where you're trying to make the Tour Championships, and the guys in the 120 are trying not to go back to first stage at Q School and have somewhere to play next year. So, look, the finals are always fun on the Korn Ferry Tour because, you have that volatility, you have so many different storylines, and then especially on the broadcast, you get to see the emotion of those guys. But it's, being faced with some of the courses that they are playing now, like there's, throughout the middle of the season, a lot of cuts to get to the weekend, -6, sometimes -7. But now the last 3 courses left for the Korn Ferry Tour Finals is that really demanding, challenging, kind of setup. So I think that helps get the best players into the Tour Championships, and it also helps the best players kind of, rise to the top at the end of the year.
So if you see, you mentioned the different courses coming down the final stretch. 2 out of the 3 courses that are in the finals, they haven't played on the course yet. The Vanderbilt course in Nashville, which are playing next week, and then the championship at the Pete Dye course at French Lick, presented by United Financing and Leasing and Financing, by the way. How is that going to take into play? I mean, if you don't know the courses, how do you predict the outcome?
Well, you can't, but as far as a player goes, knowing that pretty much the majority of the field hasn't seen the course, unless it's a local guy or someone that's played college golf in the area, I used to like it as a player because I feel like we're all in the same bucket. The course, technically doesn't suit anyone, especially with the pressure and everything else that everyone's dealing with. I thought it was almost, starting at the start line altogether. So I think it's fun. I think it's good also that, as a player, if you've got courses that are more of a ball striking affair, or you need to actually play really good golf tee to green, I always used to like that as well, opposed to it being a putting comp or just try to make as many birdies as you can. But there's, it's a long season. A lot of these guys have, at least last year there was a bit more of a run of the finals. This year, at least they've got a couple of weeks to kind of prepare. But if you're not like mentally and physically kind of prepared for this, with the beasts that are coming up, that is French Lick, that is even the course that's sandwiched in between those two. You said that a lot of these guys haven't played the Scarlet course in Ohio, which last year was played like a US Open. I think 6 under par or 7 under par won. So it's one of those crazy, kind of 3-week stretches where these guys are just going to have some work cut out, not only on the golf course, but also when it comes to how they're thinking and, with the pressure.
If you've had a pretty decent season to this point, you've got a little bit of runway in the finals, right? 156 gets in the first stage, 144 second, 120 in the third. Does it kind of help to kind of be behind the 8 ball a little bit and need a little kick in the butt in the early stages to make yourself kind of, I'm not saying you're not motivated, but to have that little extra bit of pressure to maybe get you over the line into the next stage and maybe get you up into that top 75 a little bit quicker?
I think so. You tend to see a lot of guys play well at this part of the season, and even guys that have just continued to keep their Korn Ferry Tour card year over year. They have made their way to the PGA Tour, but you see them kind of hit their straps or get up or step up for this kind of moment at the end of the year. So but you also see players that really struggle with the pressure. Like, even on the broadcast, you will actively see guys that are really, don't know how to put a round together, and they can't hit fairways. They're physically stressing on there's a lot of sweat appearing out of their pores. It's just, you see the guys that really revel in this, kind of make or break part of the season. And then you also see a lot of guys that kind of don't really step up and really put pressure on what their futures are going to hold. So I think I used to love it. I think, sometimes throughout the middle of the Korn Ferry Tour season, it gets a bit stagnant. You're playing in Middle America. It's hot. It's, you're just trying to get from week to week. If you don't have your best stuff of making everything you look at, you'll just go the next week and hope that's it. But I think with the weather's perfect, the courses get tougher, and then the golf gets better. So I think you'll see, a lot of the guys typically that make the most out of this end of the season will go to the PGA Tour, because, this is more PGA Tour style golf in the finals. And then, look, you'll see some heartbreaking stories. We saw, a couple of years ago, Joey Garber, he shoots mid-60s in the final round of the Tour Championships, and he misses going to the PGA Tour by 4 points. And he never made it to the PGA Tour the following year. And this year he's struggling also. So there's a lot of those stories where, Kevin Doherty last year, he got his PGA Tour card, but he came up agonizingly short at Q School about 10 years ago, or 7 years ago in Portland, and a chip that finished 1 centimeter short in the heart. Sorry about the use of metric system there for you boys. We'll say an inch. But it was short of the heart of him going to the PGA Tour, and it took him 10 years to get there. So,
what about Tootin last year?
Tootin, yeah, a guy that, made an honest mistake by, at a rule where he didn't gain an advantage, and he finishes, 1 spot out of going to the PGA Tour. So it's crushing. You get a lot of great stories where guys play themselves to the PGA Tour, and then you get a lot of guys that are, that 1 or 2 shots that miss, living out their dream.
Well, how do you categorize this year with a 57, a couple 58s, 59s, post 60 rounds on the Korn Ferry Tour? I mean, are these guys that good, or are the courses set up, are they obsolete? Are they just overpowering them, or both?
It's a combination. Of course they're great. Especially last year's Korn Ferry Tour graduate list, I said we'd get 5 wins. We're already at 3, and I think there'll be a couple more in the FedEx Cup Fall season. But look, there tends to be about 3 or 4 59s or scores shot in the 50s on the Korn Ferry Tour. Del Solar, Hot Gator at the same course in Colombia, that was a little short. We would put that. I wouldn't say that 6,300 yards at elevation is usually going to test the best golfers in the world. But I like to say Del Solar smashed the course record by 4 shots, and the Korn Ferry Tour had already been there 2 previous years. So he played 19. Great golf.
He's 19 years old.
Then, Podgita, 50, and then but Frankie Sappin shot 58 at the par 72. So, that's just one of the kind of talent we're dealing with. And it's funny, you said that there's all these 59s, shot every year, 3 to 4 every year, but none of those guys have won. So in the last 2 years, every guy that shot 59, I mean, you got David Coker last year at Boise. He's in the 3rd last group, shoots 59, doesn't win the tournament. And you got Chan Kim's like, what? I got to go out and shoot 8 under and I'm leading the tournament going into the last round, to win. So it is, look, the style of golf, you have to make a lot of birdies. The courses are a little easier on the Korn Ferry to a lot of country clubs, old school country clubs. But you got to go out there and do it. I mean, it's, I never thought I'd shoot 26 under when I got my victory, but it's, you never know you can do it until it actually happens. And, I tell you, if it doesn't happen, it's really tough to win, especially if you go out in the final round of a Korn Ferry Tour event, shoot 1 under, you will probably lose 20 positions. So it's brutal. There's so much talent coming through, though. Like, obviously, with the PGA Tour University program, we get pretty much the best 10 amateurs in the world. You know, obviously, I'm a little biased in saying that, and it's not technically true, but everyone wants to be in college golf from all over the world now. So if you're in the top 10 of that program, you know, you're going to get exemptions on the Korn Ferry Tour. Obviously, number 1 goes to the PGA Tour. We got Carl Phillips that finished 10th in that position on PGA Tour University. He's already a Korn Ferry Tour winner. He's been out of college maybe 3 months. So Korn Ferry Tour is where everyone wants to be. I had a couple Australian buddies that came over and played, and they were just like, dude, this tour is so tough. They went home with tails between their legs. They're going to go try DP World Tour. So it's it's a different game over here now. It's so deep, especially with the style of golf, and pretty much top 30 can walk straight onto the PGA Tour like they do, but then a lot of those guys can win as well.
Last question, and I'll kind of build off of Brendan's prior question, which is such low scores, lots of kind of low cut numbers in the regular season. And as you mentioned, the style of golf changes pretty dramatically once you get to the finals. Who's the kind of player that's best equipped to go from 27 under wins to 10 under is a really good score?
I think the best one, obviously, the hottest guy on the Korn Ferry Tour, Matt McCarty, he won 3 times, just got his 3rd win in Boise. He gets the 3-win promotion to the PGA Tour. So now he's got a decision to make. You know, he can play in the FedEx Cup 4 Series, but you want to finish number 1 on the Korn Ferry Tour points list. So, yeah, he's a long way in front, but, you know, if someone gets hot in the finals and he loses that position, you know, that comes along with playing in the US Open. You know, you also get the Players' Championship, and your category on the PGA Tour is much better than number 2 position on the Korn Ferry Tour points list. But then, because he's one of the hottest kids on the planet, I think he's in the 60s or 70s of the world golf rankings.
Right.
You know, he's not far away from getting exemption into the Masters next year. So does he go to the FedEx Cup 4 with those free exemptions and just play how he's been playing over the last couple of months and move up that way and get a better category to the PGA Tour? So it's he won on a difficult golf course in Omaha, and he won on a couple easy golf courses at the Prosperity Charity Pro-Am and where did he just win in Boise, where obviously you have to go low there. So, Tim Vitting, back-to-back wins, the Swedish kid at the start of the year. He knows how to get it done on both styles. I think at the Veritex Bank Championship, he shot 31 under or 32 under to win there. So, I'm biased. I could go through the top 30 on the Korn Ferry Tour points list and tell you all these guys could compete anywhere. But I think just with the Max McCarty, the kid that we talked to him on the phone after his first victory, did a bit of, production research, and he said, hey, now I've got the security of going to the PGA Tour. I'm going to have a little bit more fun, play a little bit more aggressive. And, he went off and reeled another 2 victories. So, it's an incredible story.
Well, James, we appreciate your time, dude. Enjoy your travels. We look forward to seeing you down the road, especially in French Lick. I'll be in Columbus for a couple of days. If you're there, I'd love to see you. And thanks for coming on the show.
I wish. We're only going to be on site for the Tour Championships, but thanks.
That's the only one that counts for me, man. That's it.
But thanks, boys. I can talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles about the Korn Ferry Tour, so thanks for letting me ramble.
We now look at the Korn Ferry Tour points list through the Albertsons Boise Open. Matt McCarty leads that list with 3 wins on the season at 2,566 points. Coming in second is Max McGreevy at 1,879.999 points. Tim Vitting is third on the list with 1,686 points. Stephen Fisk is fourth with 1,636 points. And Taylor Dixon is fifth with 1,372 points. Brendan Sweeney's back with me. Let's talk about the first stage of the Korn Ferry Tour Finals. We had the Albertsons Boise Open. As James Nitties mentioned, it's a little bit different than the other 3, where you really got to go low out there in Boise and Idaho. Otherwise, you're not really going to be a contender. You're going home early. and had lots of threats at 59, lots of looks at 59, low scores in the 60s. And you wind up now having a guy with a 3-win promotion in Matt McCarty, and he gets an interesting decision to make. But let's talk about McCarty getting 3 wins and the rarity that happens. Hasn't happened in 3 years on this tour.
Yeah, I just remember first time it really stuck out in my mind is when Luke Guthrie, like 12 years ago, did it. And then, the Battlefield promotion and moves on. That spot from 156 to 144 is pretty huge on the cut line from, Boise going to Nashville. But what McCarty's got to do is figure out at number 1, does he stick around in the tour? Does he go for the points, or does he go on the PGA Tour and try to make his points there? So that's a big boy decision. I'm sure he's got a lot of people in his ear telling him probably which way to do it. I don't know. It's a great problem to have. I would almost ride it out on the Korn Ferry Tour just to ensure a spot in the Players and a spot in the U.S. Open. What do you think?
I think so too. Just because, again, got a U.S. Open spot. You don't have an absolutely guaranteed Players spot if you're not first on the Korn Ferry Tour points list, even with a PGA Tour card for next year. If you don't wind up first, even with the 3-win promotion, so that's something to really think about. And like James said, he could still get into the top 50 in the official World Golf Ranking by year end and find himself with a Masters invite. I don't know if it's easier to do that winning on a tour where you've got supreme confidence, you're the best player out there, or do you try your luck on a new tour and a slightly new style of golf, courses you don't know, playing against players who know those courses? I think it's probably a smarter thing to stick with the Korn Ferry Tour.
Stick with the devil you know. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Don't mess around with success. You've been crushing it the last couple of months on this tour. Take your chances, go get your points, and see if it doesn't lead you down to the Masters, the U.S. Open, and the Players.
Well, yeah, so you take a look at what's happening in Nashville, and then that goes from 144 to 120 at Columbus.
Yeah.
And then, from 120 to 175 at the United Leasing at French Lick. So the numbers are getting dwindled. And if you make it to French Lick, you're top 75, you're guaranteed full status in the Korn Ferry Tour next year. Other guys have to, from 75 to 120, they have to figure it out. It's not full status, and you have to do some qualifying as well. So there's a lot of guys shifting around. We're looking at some of the guys that we've been following this year. Evan Hammerlin, who we were with earlier in Sarasota, he's sitting at 119 right now. And earlier in the week, he started off 2 weeks ago, he's at 103rd. So he's going the wrong direction. So if you look at someone at Bryson Nimmer, who is scrambling right now, he's on fire. Not fire, I guess he is, but he went from 140 to 120, and he's in Nashville, and he's on pace to keep on going for Columbus. So there's a lot of guys scrambling around. There's a lot at stake.
Yeah, we talked about getting in that top 75 to get to the Tour Championship with an eye toward the top 30. But really, you got to think about, you got full status for next year getting into the Tour Championship. And everybody else, it starts to get really dicey really quickly. You have to start thinking about Q School, chasing the PGA Tour cards available through Q School. Can you earn more starts than you already have guaranteed through Q School without the reshuffle? There's a lot of technical stuff that's happening in the next couple of events when you get knocked out, and what that means for the future of your career, not just next season. For a lot of these guys that don't wind up making it into that top 75 and getting to the Tour Championship, this is the end of the line. They're going to go take a real job or have to figure out something else to do to keep their dream alive, and that's a tough proposition.
Well, Sam Saunders, he hung it up after chasing it for a long time. And then you look at Rob Oppenheim, who's 44 years old. He's sitting at number 62 right now. And he's got to finish strong the next couple of weeks because these guys behind him are getting momentum. And if he doesn't make 75, then what? So,
yeah. And the good news is, if you've been on this tour for a long time, or you've been going back and forth between the PGA Tour and the Korn Ferry Tour for a long time, you know what that pressure feels like. You know what you got to do. And you know the style of golf changes. And you go from firing at every flag and trying to make every putt to playing a little bit more of a defensive brand of golf.
Yep.
And that could be a big change for a lot of players, especially those young guys fresh out of college who were taught to play as aggressively as humanly possible, never facing a setup like they're going to see in the next 3 weeks.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate everything, man. This is going to be a good week for us. Could be. I'll be on the road in 2 weeks in Columbus, Ohio. Going to go check out the the course at Ohio State, and then hopefully pick up a couple more guys, and we'll see him at French Lick.
And then we get to celebrate a big end to a great season. And I can't wait to see you out there in French Lick again. So thanks, Brendan, as well.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Now, as we do on each week on the road to French Lick, we take a look at 2 holes on the Pete Dye course at French Lick Resort in French Lick, Indiana, the host of the Korn Ferry Tour Championship presented by United Leasing and Finance. And we've reached the end of the golf course. We're looking at the par 4 17th with its tabletop fairway and infinity-style green, and the challenging, closing, dog-leg downhill left, par 5 18th. Here's Will Haskett with more.
The 17th hole is the beginning of the end. A big dogleg right with waist bunkers lining the right and pot bunkers and deep-faced fairway bunkers all down the left-hand side. So you better hit it in the middle here to have any kind of chance at reaching this small green up in the distance. The 18th hole is a closing par 5, and it plays into one of the most spectacular amphitheaters in all of golf. As you stand at the tee, this dogleg left par 5 looks perfectly level, but at 300 yards off the tee, the fairway actually drops 100 feet in elevation and turns 90 degrees left into a 13,000 square foot green. A major tournament or a friendly wager could definitely be won or lost here. How much of the corner will you cut off on your second shot? That's a big factor as well as you close your round at the 18th.
That'll do it for us this week on the road to French Lick. Thanks so much for watching. We appreciate it. We're going to have episodes after each leg of the Korn Ferry Tour Finals, including the Tour Championship, where we will recap the season and celebrate the 30 players who earned PGA Tour cards for 2025. Thanks so much for watching. On behalf of everyone at the French Lick Resort and everyone here at Golf News Net, I'm Ryan Balaji. We'll see you next time.